to Pillars of Progress, a look at the work our government is doing as it implements the development plans for the nation. I'm Anne-Marie Ganes, and in our first story, Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says housing is a major priority of the government at this time. The Prime Minister was speaking at a ceremony at the Housing Development Corporation this morning to present keys and home improvement grants to victims of fire and others in need. Sherilyn Lewis has the details.
Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar told the audience that she is no stranger to persons in need, having represented them in her public life and now as Prime Minister. The Prime Minister pointed out that her government is there to make a difference, as she noted the individual cases of those in need.
In the aftermath of your very troubling experiences, and reminded of life's fragility, we are reminded of our purpose as a government, one that is justifiable and fair. The provision of adequate shelter is something Trinidad and Tobago continues to identify as one of our major concerns, and so it should be. We see it manifested across our country. This issue of people who are in dire need of housing is front and center in our minds, so many of us focus on it every day. I came into the political sphere many years ago with several years of experience in my own constituency of Superior. I am no stranger to problems of people in need. I know what it is like to deal with people in crisis, in poverty, and people in need of decent accommodation. And so when I came to this job, I came with some understanding of the problems at the local level. But I also came with a lot of desire to make a difference at the national level. I saw this as an opportunity to bring to the cabinet table my concerns for people who are homeless and who require decent accommodation in our communities. I've embarked on cross-country visits to see firsthand what the extent and challenges are of people who are homeless and in desperate need of shelter. I visited communities in every part of our country. Some of you will well remember these visits. I listened to people who live on our streets and in our shelters, people who truly have nowhere else to go. The causes of homelessness are many and can differ from one community to the next. The solutions therefore will be just as different, depending on the cause and depending on the location of the particular community. But it is a national issue, and it needs to be addressed within a national framework. If we do not reach out to each other on all levels of government, we will not be able to solve the problems.
The Prime Minister says that housing is a major challenge facing the government at this time, but it's not the only one.
These challenges include ensuring economic prosperity and sustainable development of our cities and of our rural areas. Challenges which involve creating new opportunities for employment. Challenges which have to do with strengthening social cohesion and protecting our environment for future generations. Today's ceremony is recognition of the fundamental contribution that housing plays in this effort. The provision of adequate housing can only be ensured through cooperation, the input and the connection of the public sector, the private sector, and the business sector. We all have to connect with each other. We have to share this power of connections. Homelessness and the provision of adequate housing is a national issue, and it needs to be addressed within a national framework. First are the needs of the absolute homeless. By that I mean people in immediate need, those living on the street in emergency shelters. Recently, Minister Glenn Ramadas Singh brought our attention to Ms. John, the Minister, someone who was living in a container. It's really persons who are in absolute need, in shelters in locations not meant for human habitation. These must be our priority focus in the short term. But there are also those whom we call the relative homeless, those who are at high risk of becoming homeless. These are the people who pay too high a proportion of the income in rent, who live in inadequate accommodation, who lack necessary community supports. We need to make the problems of homeless people and persons desiring housing a national priority. But we need to find flexible solutions to meet local situations. The response of the People's Partnership focuses on building on what works and on fostering partnerships at other levels of government and the private sector. The kind of partnerships which are needed to effectively reduce and prevent homelessness. It is also our government's commitment to invest in the provision of housing over the next several years. It is also our commitment to be accountable. We want to ensure that we continue to operate within a framework which respects the state, our patrimony, the taxpayer, and the regulations and laws of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago.
This is the first official visit of the Prime Minister to the Ministry of Housing and the Environment, and she joined Minister Rudal Munilal in handing out keys to victims of fire as well as home improvement grants to HDC beneficiaries.
The Minister of Housing and the Environment, Dr. Rudal Munilal, says the demand on his ministry for housing units is in excess of 125,000. The minister was speaking at a function to hand over certificates of comfort at the Penal Community Centre on Tuesday. Sunil Ramjit Singh has more.
The Minister of Housing says while he cannot recall any distribution of certificates of comfort in the last 8 years, he is part of a government that is finding a solution.
The People's Partnership Government have accepted the challenge with full commitment to finally address this long-standing problem of squatting on state lands. We have already initiated action in a number of areas. For example, the update and the attempt to correct the deficiencies in the current legislation. A draft new bill is before the ministry and will be prepared for Cabinet shortly to address those problems in the legislation. The LSA has initiated collaboration and coordination with other ministries of government and other agencies, state enterprises, who are experiencing squatting and have arrived at a common agenda and direction for squatter regularization. We have employed an additional 54 temporary staff to advance the mapping and social survey sites. To date, 218 out of 251 sites have been mapped. Every structure has been taken up. Social surveys on 160 sites have been completed. We have worked with the Inter-American Development Bank in refining the action plan for regularizing 25 sites over the next 6 years. More importantly, ladies and gentlemen, the ministry has embarked on fulfilling one of its fundamental missions. That is, providing the opportunity so that many more citizens and their children would enjoy the privilege of having a roof over their heads and a solid floor upon which to stand. As minister with responsibility, and as a product myself of rural Trinidad, I am only too aware of how pressing and challenging is this issue of housing for our people. Every day I meet families who are literally in despair, who are in tears, crying for shelter. I indicated on Sunday last, when I came downstairs at my own home to go on a walkabout in Picton Settlement, there were 2 cars there camped out at my house. I couldn't leave my own house. They came looking for house. And that symbolizes and is a manifestation of the dire need for housing and shelter. Ladies and gentlemen, we intend to reintroduce the term low income, a term that disappeared some time ago. We intend to find solutions to meet the demand for shelter for those citizens who even cannot afford an HDC home. We are deeply conscious that we need to do more, much more, if we are to seriously meet the challenges of providing housing and shelter. I will tell you here this afternoon that the current database has a list of 125,000 applicants, and it increases annually by more than the number of houses we are constructing. In the ministry, the HDC will now face the anguish and anger every single day to provide shelter. And we do feel that pain and that burden. Clearly, we need to explore and embrace every option available to seek more creative and responsible solutions so that more citizens can fulfill this basic human need. As a result, we are undertaking a comprehensive review of our housing policy, incorporating not only the construction of new housing units, but looking as well at the role of private developers and the provision of lands for persons who are interested in lands for residential purposes. Last week, the Cabinet took a decision to reverse a previous initiative of the last government to mandate the HDC to develop a policy on distributing service lots for residential purposes, so we can provide both housing and land as well for those who are so inclined.
Dr. Munilal was joined by Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar in handing out certificates to some 200 families identified through the Land Settlement Agency under the Ministry of Housing. It was all smiling faces as the recipients expressed their gratitude after waiting a long time to see this day. For the Ministry of Housing, this process continues later this month and onwards. It is an occasion welcomed by another Member of Parliament, the Member for Oropouche West and Minister in the Ministry of Works and Transport, Stacey Rupnarine.
This is a very significant day for us here, and we understand the importance of regularizing the squatters and ensuring that we take care of them as well. And I know that the Honourable Prime Minister, in her capacity as MP for Siparia, also understands this importance. So today I say hats off to the LSA and also to the Minister of Housing, the Honourable Dr. Rudal Munilal, who should be here shortly, for it is under his directive that the LSA falls under. And I know that within the LSA you have had something like over 20,000 applicants from 1999 to date. And so I say congratulations on delivering. And our Honourable Prime Minister has indicated to us that this year is a year for delivery. And this is certainly what LSA is doing today in the area of Penal Debe. And I am sure that many of us in this area and in surrounding areas as well would benefit from this. Ladies and gentlemen, today would not be possible if not for the vision and the direction of one woman who holds the position of Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honourable Kamla Persad-Bissessar. And so today, on your behalf and on behalf of the people of Oropouche West, I say thank you, Prime Minister, for delivering to us. This is what the people expected. This is what we are trying to do in the year of 2011, to deliver to you. And there is much work to be done. And I see that the vision of the LSA says towards sustainable development. And what is sustainable development? What does that look like? Not only does it look like development in terms of our infrastructure. We know that in this area we have a lot of bad roads and a lot of improper drainage, and we have a lot of problems in terms of infrastructure. But there is also another type of development which will take our country into developed country status. And that type of development is what our Prime Minister always talks about. It's people development. And if we don't develop our people, then our country will not be developed. Because the development of our people is directly proportional to the development of our country. And so as we continue to work together, and the Prime Minister continues to work to develop our people and to develop our country, we hope that we can continue to have your support.
The Ministry of Housing and the Land Settlement Agency is preparing for another handout of certificates later this month.
Food Production Minister Vasant Bharat says global developments are increasing the need for Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean to strive towards achieving food security. The minister was addressing the launch of a week of activities and public lectures by the Caribbean Research and Development Institute, CARDI, at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Port of Spain on Wednesday. The launch was attended by officials from several Caribbean countries and students of the Bishop's Angstey High School. Sunil Ramjit Singh has this report.
According to the Food Production Minister, food security and nutrition is a major issue on the global agenda. Natural disasters such as floods, famines and drought in some of the larger food-producing countries have created shortages in supply of food to countries that rely on imports.
Many of these countries are now looking to reduce or stop the exports of foods that they traditionally have sent and exported to countries which are net importers like our own. India and Pakistan have suffered their own issues with regard to flooding and other climatic catastrophes, and they themselves have had to curtail a number of the products that they export to traditional markets of who import like ourselves.
Recent reports are that food prices internationally have increased by over 10%, pushing an additional 40 million people around the world into poverty. The minister says on the home front, a 5-pronged plan is being pursued to reduce the food import bill, which is currently over $4 billion, to reduce inflation, which currently stands at 9%, having dropped from a high last year of 16%, to create a sustainable environment for long-term employment in agriculture, diversification of the economy, and creating food security for our people. He adds that research in agriculture and new technology is critical to meeting this mandate.
Without research into new techniques and new technology, we would continue to farm in the same old way that we've done when the rest of the world has moved ahead. And this is one of the reasons why we are trying to bring as many young people involved, and that's why I'm so heartened to see young students here today, because we're trying to bring as many young people in agriculture, to get involved in agriculture, because it's the young people who will embrace technology. It's the young people who will embrace new techniques. It's the young people who have and who will always be the creative ones. And therefore, it's important that we involve ourselves in this whole process of continuous research and development.
Minister Barrett made a special appeal to the audience to support local farmers by incorporating local produce in their diet.
And the Minister of Health has given an update on the measures being put in place to deal with donations of blood. As Sunil Ramjit Singh reports, progress is being made towards opening a branch of the blood bank in South Trinidad.
Recent changes in the procedure for donating blood has caused some confusion among some citizens. But the Minister of Health, Therese Batiste Cornelis, says this has provided useful feedback for improving the system.
A lot of people are clamoring to bring back the CHIT system. But a lot of people apparently they don't know how the CHIT system works, which explains a lot of the problems we had with the CHIT system. So the RHA chairman and deputy chairman are meeting to discuss a proper implementation. As I said, the aim is this being an interim measure, because as I said, we got approval to get the 6 blood mobile units, proper blood mobile units that can go everywhere to each RHA. And one of the plans the RHAs will have is this blood mobile unit will also go out to companies. So they will drive up to your company and you can come down the stairs and go give that blood. I say come down the stairs because I invite you to walk down rather than use the elevator. Also, we would actually have one for the NBTS to be able to go out and get that blood.
The minister says there is need for blood donor facilities to be more accessible to the public, and her ministry is making progress in establishing a branch of the blood bank in San Fernando.
People have been clamoring about why is there only a blood bank in the north? What has happened to the south? Unknown to people, the Ministry of Health has been doing things in the background. And the San Fernando General Hospital has a location which can actually act as a southern version of the blood bank. We had been approached by the Southwest Regional Health Authority into the possibility of doing that. They said they had approached the Ministry of Health Administration previously and such had not been granted. It was discussed with the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Anton Cumberbatch, and he relayed the concerns that were there, one of the main ones being to get a hematologist to man that lab to ensure standards and efficiencies were kept in accordance with PAHO and WHO standards. The chairman informed me today that they have located a hematologist. So that is one of the things those in South can look forward to, into having now a sudden blood bank location.
The ministry is entering the second phase of its blood donor campaign in the run-up to World Blood Donor Day in June, which focuses on donor retention and recruitment. The ministry will also be working with the Friends of the Blood Bank to establish a blood donor club where donors may get additional benefits for giving blood.
A new bus service from Montrose, Chaguanas to Port of Spain has been launched by the Public Transport Service Corporation. Line Minister Jack Warner commended PTSC Chairman Devon Mirage for his hard work and diligence in responding to the travelling needs of the population. Sherilyn Lewis visited and filed this report.
Addressing a gathering at Signature Hall, Longdonville, Works and Transport Minister Jack Warner said for far too long, citizens living within rural areas could not get transportation to and from their area, and he lamented that past government administrations had not done enough to alleviate their plight.
For far too long, the bus service did not believe that you should take care of these rural areas. And even while I was lost in Montrose this morning, I was telling Mr. Rupnarain that you have to talk to the traffic department and to the MP and to the borough, Mr. Mayor. That traffic on Montrose Main Road has to change. Mr. Mayor, that is under you and your MP. You and the MP, not me. I would only, of course, say, okay, but you have to find the means to make that traffic one way into Shogunas and use the back road for another way out of Shogunas. You can no longer have that Shogunas, that Montrose Main Road as it is. It is cluttered, it is jammed.
The Works Minister lauded the PTSE board for their quick work in launching this new bus service.
Under 3 weeks to bring this idea into fruition. Chairman, I want to again commend you very highly. I want to commend you to Minister for your vision. If they had this kind of representation in my time, I wouldn't have had to walk 6 miles to school in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. And the $4 that you pay now for Port of Spain may have been 4 cents in those days. Who knows? I may have come out a brighter person, or no, I shouldn't say brighter, a less dull person.
Also delivering remarks was Minister of Trade and Industry Stephen Cadiz, the MP for Shogunas East, who said that this new bus service will help commuters save money.
Right now it costs me $30 a day to get to work. And that was because she had to take a taxi from Montrose down to the junction in Shogunas, then to get a taxi into Port of Spain, and then do the reverse in the evening, and it costs her roughly $30 a day. So when I have $4 a day now, that is a huge saving. And besides that, the saving in time, because it would take to go from one area in Port of Spain to one area in Shogunas, then have to wait on another taxi to come up here. So she is going to save not only a substantial amount of money every month, but she is going to save an awful lot of time.
He also boasted that a new bus service will raise the standard of transit in central Trinidad.
The best constituency in Trinidad and Tobago. And today is just one of those areas that will improve, one, the quality of life for the people who live in Shogunas East and the surrounding areas, and two, to bring Shogunas East up to a standard that will compete with any other constituency in Trinidad and Tobago.
Also present at the ceremony was Mayor of Shogunas Orlando Nagisa and Minister in the Ministry of Works and Transport Stacey Rupnarain.
And Works and Transport Minister Jack Warner is to meet with Red Jet officials before week's end. Speaking to the media after launching a bus service, Minister Warner says he has agreed to meet with Red Jet officials. This will be the first time the Works Minister will be meeting with Red Jet.
I was traveling last night via Miami. I met an official from Red Jet, and they asked me for a meeting, and I agreed to see them. They said urgently, and I arranged to be there for 6 a.m. on Friday.
Smiling faces and lots of excitement in Davide as hundreds of the nation's school children experience SciTech Fest. The 2-week event, which is a Nehurst initiative, got off the ground on Tuesday. Several ministries and state enterprises are participating, and by all indications, the Science and Technology Fair is achieving its objectives. From north, south, east and west they came. Girls and boys of all ages from public and private schools across the country. This was an exciting day for hundreds of school children because it was an outing with a difference. A chance for them to experience science and technology in a fun, exciting and innovative way. SciTech Fest opened its doors on Tuesday, and 1 day later, the location in Davide has been flooded with many of the nation's school children, intent on enjoying their day away from the classroom. There were refreshments and a place to relax, and the opportunity for these youngsters to enjoy a hands-on approach to science and technology. As one enters the main building, the BG booth stands out with its bright orange colors and bustling atmosphere. Exhibitor Stacey Ann Edwards explains the concept behind BG's interactive booth.
We wanted to incorporate a lot of science concepts, make it very interactive and fun, and test people's knowledge and make it fun as well. It incorporates alternative sources of fuel, so we have a water-powered boat. We have a car that runs on solar. We have remote control helicopters, and a lot of fun things that children usually like. We have Gene, you're manipulating Gene to connect it to your characteristics that you see as well. And we have some plasma cars that don't have any moving parts, so they just have to move it like that to carry them from one place to the other.
You have to use this mobile to get a marble, a silver marble, and when you come back, you have to make a trap so the ball will get into a cup.
From science to music, Niehurst wanted to ensure that there was something for everyone. The Ministry of Arts and Multiculturalism focused on the evolution of steel pan through the ages.
Either players or even children who might be interested in it, or even adults, get an idea of how to make the steel pan or where the steel pan evolved from, and they get a hands-on as well because they get to play the instruments, and at the same time it's an inspiration to want to go out and learn to play the steel pan.
The Ministry of Energy and Energy Affairs created a wow effect aimed at making the public more aware of the ministry's drive to promote energy and energy efficiency.
Inside is a replica of the interior of a home. So we want to show the different applications of the different types of solar energy. The different types of energy, renewable energy. So like the stove would be powered by a biogas compost on the outside. Water would power some of the appliances, so would the wind turbine and the solar panel on the roof.
The Water and Sewage Authority, WASA, created a STIR with its model of a watershed area.
In aid of that, we use the model, which depicts a landscaped area with catchment areas as well as the water treatment process. This will help the children understand their environment and how WASA operates in their environment.
And the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Services was hard at work demonstrating how CPR is done.
This is what? His hands? Where's his heart?
And here we are outside, where the University of the West Indies Department of Food Production and the Ministry of Food Production, Land and Marine Affairs educated the public with practical examples.
The compost shredder, when it reaches this stage, we run it through the machine and you will have it like this.
So eventually we're hoping that we could study the reproductive systems and create an alternative market. Instead of hunters we can't control hunting in the closed season. Even though it's against the law, people still go along doing it. So if we could provide it, people could hopefully come to us and leave the population in the wild to replenish itself, and maybe we could release some back.
And thanks for joining us on Pillars of Progress. Join us again tomorrow for another look at our government at work.